Release date, October 17th, 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special throwback-style episode of TBD CFB with your hosts. I'm Mason.
And I'm Joey.
And Joey here is actually home from college for the first time in a while, so we've been able to do like an in-person episode. Yeah. Isaac today was flying back from the LSU game, so he's not here today, which is totally cool. We're going to miss him, but we got his picks. We're going to do a little Week 8 preview for you. We're super excited for this episode today. We're going to start off with our pick records real quick. For those who are following along at home, here's the results. In third place, we have Joey. He is 6 games back. He went 3-2 in Week 7, giving him an overall of 21-19. In second place, we have myself. I'm 2 games back. I also went 3-2 last week with an overall of 25-15. And in first place, of course, we have Isaac, who went 4-1 last week, almost went 5-0 again. He's the only one to go 5-0 this season. He almost went 5-0, but he has an overall of 27-13. Best picks of the week, me and Isaac, we had Oregon over Ohio State. I think the reason me and Isaac really picked that is because it was at home in Autzen for Oregon. And I just didn't think there was any way that Ohio State, I mean, because the game was actually a lot closer than the score looked because they missed 2 field goals. So really they would have had a 7-point lead had they made both those field goals. Yeah. Well, actually, they had missed one, but they went for it on 4th and goal and they could have kicked the field goal. And if they had done that, then they would have been up by a true 7 points.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the game, it came down to one play. Quarterback not getting down in time, being able to call a timeout to get a game-winning field goal for Ohio State. So that was really the difference right there. I mean, it could have gone both ways, but there were just missed opportunities on both sides of the ball. One really cost a team a win.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I feel like I almost had a really good pick with USC, but they choked. Still a really close game, but, I almost had that one. But the other best pick is going to be Joey having K-State over Colorado. So with that being said, finally, that's a little bit kind of a Week 7 review. We're going to move on to the biggest games of Week 8. Yes, we are already over halfway through the season. Super excited for these. We got a couple top 25 matches we're going to talk about. But first, we're going to start out with our absolutely favorite segment, the Game of the Week. Joey, why don't you tell the folks what our Game of the Week is?
Well, Mason, we have the number 5 ranked Georgia Bulldogs versus the number 1 ranked Texas Longhorns at 7:30 p.m. at DRK in Austin, Texas.
Yes, we sure do. If you can't tell, we're definitely missing Isaac this week. So, yes, we sure do. Obviously, this is a big game for me just because, I am a Georgia fan. Texas is undefeated right now, coming off a huge win against a really good defense with Oklahoma. Oklahoma obviously having the struggles across the offensive line. I mean, they're taking cornerbacks and turning them into wide receivers because their number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 wide receivers are all out with crazy injuries. And I think they got Nick Anderson back for 2 plays against Auburn, and then he just went down again. So that's kind of the story for Oklahoma this season. However, Texas playing extremely good ball. I think there's a lot of critics out there that are saying, they haven't really played anybody yet because Michigan and Oklahoma are both teams that are less than average, right, than they have been the past couple years. So,
I mean, yeah, but Texas is still showing that they have an impressive offense, and you know what? Their defense has stepped up. Now, against a better offense, will they be as good as how they've been looking? We'll see. I mean, Michigan hasn't had an offensive identity, especially in that Texas game. And, Oklahoma, as you stated, missing a lot of wideouts. A true freshman at quarterback who honestly didn't play too terribly. Against Oklahoma, I would have liked to see Oklahoma put in Jackson Arnold, who's more of a gunslinger type quarterback, just to see a little difference of an offense, see if that worked out. But they kind of stuck to just one way, which, true freshman, you're just trying to get them minutes, get them game time moments, which I can understand. I think the game was already out of hand. I think they had already kind of lost that game. Mainly because there was no offense, so the defense kind of crumbled. We've seen that before, Georgia versus Clemson. No offense, the defense eventually crumbles. So this is going to be a great game, man.
Yeah, I completely agree. Georgia obviously having their struggles on both sides of the ball. You come out, you get a big win against Clemson, don't even give up a single touchdown to an offense that Clemson hasn't really played anybody yet since then. But they've been doing really, really good. Cade Klubnik is putting up some really good numbers, and that's a really big win for Georgia. But since then, we go and we play Kentucky on the road, and we almost lose. And Kentucky's been shown to be a tougher team this year, but they still just lost to Vanderbilt, who's, don't get me wrong, better program. Obviously took down Alabama, but still it's Vandy. And then we go out and we lose to Alabama in dramatic fashion, coming back down like almost 25 points, I think, to take a lead and then immediately give it up and then throw a pick at the end of the game. And that was probably the biggest game of the year for us. Now we got to go to Texas. We struggled a little bit defensively against Miss State last week. Not sure if playing a little bit softer to avoid injuries before a big game like this. I'm kind of tired of making excuses for this Georgia team this year. I think the bottom line is we're just not as good as we were last year. That's not alluding to a pick, but I'm just saying I don't think that we're the team we were last year. So coming into this game, the ESPN FPI has given Texas a 76% chance to win, and the spread is Texas by 3.5. So the ESPN thinks that this game is not going to be close. They see probably Texas is 76%. I'd probably say they say that Texas is going to win by about 14. The spread, on the other hand, Vegas thinks that it will be a closer game than expected. I'm going first on this one. So, yeah, I mean, obviously Texas, big-time powerhouse this year, looking really good. I want to say they haven't really faced a defense, but they faced two really tough defenses. And now that's not to say they don't have their liabilities because, the Oklahoma game is rough. That's a rough game. So they have to go into that one, scheme that one, and even though the Oklahoma lost by 30, it still was a tough game for Texas in the actual physical aspect of it. Not that it was hard to win, but the fact that Texas had to actually, Ewers got sacked a couple times. This is a rough physical game that they always play, and it's a heated rivalry game in mid-season. And so Texas had to go play them. Now they got to come back home and play us. So that I think that factors into it. The key is for Georgia in this one, man. You got to establish the run game early, and especially against that Texas defensive line. They're good, but if you can run the inside run effectively, you can take down Texas. So we've got to establish the run game. That's one thing. Another thing you have to do is not turn the ball over, Carson Beck. We turned the ball over 4 times, every single one of them him. 3 interceptions against Bama and 1 fumble in our own territory. 2 of those interceptions in our own territory and that fumble in our territory as well, leading to 3 straight Alabama touchdowns, which gives them the early lead, right? So I think we have a lot to clean up. My friend Matt Gaddy, he just sent me this picture right here. He's playing NCAA 25, and he just said this is how this Saturday needs to go, which is... yeah, Georgia winning 98-28. And so, I of course, I hope that's the score, which is why I'm going to pick Georgia to win this game. Let me tell you why. I don't think it's going to be that. But every team in the SEC, I've said it this year, every team in the SEC is going to come away with a loss. And I think this is probably the last team that's able to take down Texas. So, to me, I got Texas in this one. I know you're making some weird face, so I'm excited to hear what you're thinking. And you know what? I may be being hopeful. Texas is a really good team, but this is not an unwinnable game for Georgia. If Georgia can come out and play the perfect game, establish the run game, pound the ground, make the right throws, get the chunk yardage play, and get in the end zone when you need to, then I think we can win. If Mike Bobo goes out there and Mike Bobos, then we're not going to win this game. But if he can get it together, make some good play calling, and run the freaking ball, I think we can come away with this one.
Yeah, I don't mean to make a face, but I feel like there are arguably 2 teams that are those teams where you can see them going undefeated. Really, in my opinion, there's just one. The 2 teams would be Oregon and Texas. Those are the 2 teams who have shown that through adversity they can pull through. The reason I think there's only one, which is Texas, is because Oregon, they have their struggles, man. And it just takes that one game, that one team to really pinpoint those struggles. Meanwhile, Texas, you have them going against Michigan and Oklahoma, 2 really great defenses, and still putting up points. Really solid off. We knew their offense was going to be really good. They've been good for a few years now, but this has been impressive by them against 2 good defenses and still putting up decent points and winning by a good margin. Now, the only question with them is, okay, they haven't really faced an offense, right? So, is their defense really that? Meanwhile, Georgia, it seems like they've taken a flip within the season. So starting out the season, their defense was it. Their offense wasn't. Their defense is what was carrying the games. The Clemson game, the defense was shutting down the Clemson offense. So eventually the offense could, put up points. And, against Kentucky, offense still couldn't put up points, but that defense was there, and that was the reason really why y'all won the game. And then all of a sudden, it just seemed like it flipped. And, that Alabama game, you bring up the multiple turnovers, and honestly, it could be that instance like the Clemson game where the offense can't do anything. That defense is going to fall apart eventually if it's a really good offense, like Alabama's at the time.
Right.
So I was thinking that, and then we watched the Mississippi State game, and I never thought Mississippi State would put up as many points as they did against Georgia. And that was really concerning to me because the offense still is not there. It's performing better, but it's not like Stetson Bennett, Georgia offense. Mm-mm. And it's definitely not that defense. And when you pair the two together, it just seems like Texas is the hands down, no doubt. Again, I don't know necessarily. I don't want to be like, there's no doubt Texas is going to win. But I have to pick Texas for this. Everything is stacking in their favor. Their offense is too impressive. And right now their defense is looking to be impressive. I wouldn't say it's better than Georgia's because Georgia defense is, it's known as Georgia's defense. So, but I think Texas comes away with it. They've already matched up against two really good defenses. What makes a third? Right. Yeah,
and if Georgia's going to win this game, they obviously have to have, like I said, a perfect offensive game. Even if the defense struggles, because Texas got some playmakers, dude. Another thing to look at too is Isaiah Bond was injured against Oklahoma last week, so he's questionable at the moment. We'll see how that turns out. Obviously Saturday, it might probably end up being a game time decision. I'm assuming he'll be okay, so we'll still have to play him. But this is a good wide receiver. And the other thing that Texas is going to struggle with, I think, is with our defensive line. They're on their second and third string backs. But so are we. So that's actually going to be really interesting to see how that plays out because Branson Robinson last week took a pretty hard. I think he injured his knee. Don't know how long he's out. It wasn't like an ACL. It wasn't like an ACL tear or anything like that. But it was bad enough that he had to leave the game. So we'll see how that goes. But we're going to be rocking with Trevor Etienne and Nate Frazier, the true freshman, who is an absolute dog. He's literal, but he's still working on his blocking ability as a true freshman against some of these bigger defensive ends. But he's playing well as far as being a shifty back. He reminds me a lot of DeAndre Swift. He's really shifty. He can, if he gets in space, and he make you miss. He's gonna go. So
now the big thing I think is gonna establish who wins this game though is who can establish the run game first and more dominantly.
Yes, I agree.
This past game for Texas against Oklahoma, that run game was really good. Mm-hmm. Can it carry over against Georgia? And with Georgia, can Etienne continue to have as good of a game as he has been? Now, I don't look at Etienne as a true running back. He's more of a receiving back, but he's been really running the ball, nailing people in the teeth and all that. He's gotten bigger. So who can establish first? Yeah, that really determines who's going to win this game.
And just to give a quick stat, too, you got Trevor Etienne at 63 carries, 335 yards, and 4 touchdowns on the season. And the most rushing yards for Texas is Quintrevion Wisner. He's got 45 carries, 278 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. And also because you have the loss of C.J. Baxter at the beginning of the season, and they also have Jadon Blue, who's really good. He's really good, you know. So we'll see what happens with that game.
Our next game up is number 6, Miami versus unranked Louisville at 12 p.m. The ESPN FPI has Miami at 55% and the spread having Miami -4. This is going to be a really tough one. Louisville, yes, they're unranked, but they're still a good team, having some really disappointing losses against Notre Dame and SMU. But, this past game really showing, we're still here. Miami, on the other hand, this is why it's a really good game. Miami, on the other hand, having 2 games, arguably 3, where they really should have lost. Now, the California game, let's go over it real quick.
Okay.
They were down by over 20 points and came back and won it in the second half. Mm-hmm. Is that on Cal or is it on Miami? We don't know. Cam Ward at quarterback is still impressive. He's really doing good at quarterback. He's really causing that offense to be 10 times better than what they used to be with Van Dyke. But, it's just worrisome. That defense can't even hold up against the lackluster offenses. And the offense, I think they're starting to get figured out. Meanwhile, Louisville, they're just that wild card. They've been a wild card for a few years now. A really good team, don't get me wrong, but I've always looked at them like a wild card ever since Lamar Jackson. And, with that, at Louisville, it's my pick first. I have to pick. It's going to be one of those games again like this past weekend. I have to pick Louisville to win this game. It just takes so many games where you're getting lucky and you're coming back last second to win that game, or you're getting a lucky call in your favor. Eventually, it's not going to work out, and I think Louisville could be that team. Fingers crossed, Louisville is that team. We need to, bring the Hurricanes back to reality.
So before I make my pick, I want to go back a little bit further too. I want to talk about Cal, but I also want to talk about Virginia Tech.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk about that, right? Whether or not in real life that was actually a touchdown at the end, no matter what, it was called a touchdown on the field. Mm-hmm. By rule,
we never talked about
you have to have irrefutable video evidence that says, hey, that guy did not come down with that ball. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, that was not there. Overturn means to confirm. I don't believe
substantial evidence.
I don't believe from the angles we had that you could overturn that call. So I did not like what the ACC said for that. They said that they couldn't call it a touchdown because the Miami defender was already out of bounds. So I think that's malarkey. That sounds to me, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but that sounds like to me malarkey. So I don't know. And then, so you bring up Cal, right? So with Cal, yes, I think that was on the Cal defense that they let Miami come all the way back. However, that was definitely targeting on the Cal quarterback. 100%. He launched, crown of the helmet, 100% by the book definition targeting. That player's ejected, automatic first down, 15 yards, and it almost puts them in field goal range, and they can run the clock out a little bit more.
Yep.
So I believe that once again, 2 weeks in a row, the ACC made business decisions to keep their undefeated team an undefeated team, or at least give them the best opportunity.
Now, with that Virginia Tech play, because we've never discussed this.
Yes.
With the Virginia Tech play, the reason I thought they overturned it was because when coming down, he did not. He had no hands on the ball, went on the ground. My thought was his back was out of bounds. He was out. But for them to say the defender was out of bounds, it's kind of questionable, as well as it has to be substantial evidence.
Right.
I never believed that there was substantial evidence for them to overturn the call, especially since the call on the field was a touchdown. So that is a very, very
It's
interesting.
a very fine line. And honestly, if you want my opinion, I don't think it was a touchdown.
He
may have come down with it. I mean, really, what we can't tell. And because of that, it should have been a touchdown because it was called touchdown on the field. Miami should be 4-2 right now, not 6-0. With that being said, I'm with you. I think Louisville gets ready for this one, and I think at home they take down Miami. I don't think that they can get bailed out this week. Like I said with another game, I said you got to make this thing too big to rig. I said that I can't remember what game I said it with, but I said you got to make this one too big to rig. So Louisville has got to come out, and they've got to make sure they win this one big. They've got to scheme well. Their offense has got to get it together, which I think they have been. Because Virginia even is a better team than they were the last couple of years, and so is SMU. That was a hard-fought game. But, SMU, they proved that they deserve to win that game, and I think that that's exactly what's going to happen with Louisville this week. And Isaac is picking Miami. So there we go, 2-1 on that one. Next game up, this is one we're actually excited for. If you've been following the podcast for a long time, you know that we're big fans of Indiana. Because, I don't know, underdog, whatever I don't know. Anyway, we're big fans of Indiana since 2020. This is, of course, Nebraska versus number 16 Indiana at 12 p.m. Indiana having the best start they've had since 2020, only losing that one game to Ohio State really close that year. That was the year with Penix.
He got injured that game.
Yeah, of course, if there was no divisions that year, Indiana would have been in probably in the Big Ten championship playing Ohio State again, which is what we all honestly wanted to see. Penix had a really, really good season that year. And anyway, now it's 2024. And best start 6-0 with a lot of people who we've never really heard of.
No big plays, no big names, just solid complimentary football.
Right, which is all you really need to win. Kirby Smart talks about it all the time. So they're actually leading the Big Ten Conference right now, which if you told me that, I would be completely surprised. Well, they're probably tied with Oregon.
They are tied with Oregon.
Yeah, so they're tied with Oregon and Penn State, but still, if you told me at the beginning of the season that Indiana would go into Week 8 undefeated at 6-0 and be 3-0 in the conference, I would have said no way. Yeah. So this is a really good team. The ESPN FPI, we have Indiana 70% favored, and the spread is in favor of IU by 5. Isaac is picking Indiana, of course. Nebraska has not really been a bad team this year. They have the one loss to Illinois in overtime, which is a really close game.
And a good team
at home. Yeah, Illinois is a way better team than they were last year. Obviously, they have the one loss to Penn State, but other than that, they've been a pretty good football team. Dylan Raiola, as much as I think he's super creepy, I think he's been playing some really good football. But this one is at the home of the Hoosiers. I think that Dylan Raiola in Nebraska is going to be ready. I don't really know much to say about this game just because, even in Week 8, we still haven't seen these teams. We haven't seen them come to full life yet. So anything can still happen. It's still anybody's conference, especially in the Big Ten. So I am going to pick Indiana in this one, not even to play it safe, just because I love that team, and I really hope that they come out with this one against the Cornhuskers. And
that's totally understandable. For me, I always pulled for Indiana because I always pulled for Michael Penix Jr., who is not there anymore. He's been gone from there for a while now. Now, the thing is, Nebraska, their offense is starting to pick it up. Is it there yet? No, I think it's another year or two before their offense is solidified, but it's working its way up. Meanwhile, Nebraska's defense has been dominant the past 2 years. A loss against Illinois where, again, Illinois is a good team. Now, did I think it was going to be as rough as it was? No. But Illinois is a good team. When it comes down to this game, though, I have to go with what I know. And what I don't know is anything about Indiana this year. I know they're 16th, but who is making them 16th?
Right.
Really. And who have they truly faced? Meanwhile, Nebraska going up against Colorado and Illinois and just showing hey, we're ready to take that next step. It gives me confidence in them. I'm going to choose Nebraska here. I think it's going to be a big win for them on the road. Disappointing for Indiana, I know, but it's what I got confidence in.
Right, and this will be the biggest test for Indiana so far. Nebraska's been tested a couple times this year, but for Indiana, this is going to be a big-time test for them. Can they come up against this really talented Nebraska offense and hold them to, whatever they need to hold them to win? Can the Indiana offense come out against that strong Nebraska defense and say, hey, we deserve to be ranked at 16th or in the top 25, and we're going to keep, playing for the Big Ten? Because Indiana, they got some tough games coming up. They actually have Michigan and Ohio State on their schedule, and they have to go to Ohio State. So I don't know that any team really this year in the Big Ten or in college football is going to make it out alive. I think the only one right now really is Texas, but that looks like they could because if they beat Georgia, I don't think they take a loss at any point. No. But it's the SEC, it's college football, anything can happen. Yep. But especially in the Big Ten, I think that there's a lot of teams that are not going to come out of this undefeated. So yeah.
Our next game is number 7 Alabama versus number 11 Tennessee at 3:30 p.m. Both teams having a strugglesome week this past week. Actually, a strugglesome past 2 weeks.
Yeah, really.
Both being upset 2 weeks ago, and then this past week coming off of close. hold your breath type wins. We're not going to go into that because that's a whole other story.
Good Lord. If South Carolina had any type of kicker, bro.
Sellers sold.
Hashtag sellers sold. Anyway.
But, Tennessee, we're learning that their quarterback is still young.
Yeah.
He is still learning how to make mature plays.
He's a stud.
He's a stud.
He's young.
He is very young, and their offensive line hasn't been helping that much.
Nope.
Their defense is actually what's holding them in games, which is impressive for a Tennessee team. Meanwhile, Alabama, 2 weeks ago, their defense was not the thing holding them within the game.
Not even 2 weeks ago. Even this past week, dude.
Yeah, this past week, they were a little bit better this past week.
I think this is why Georgia's bad, because I really don't know how we lost to those jokers. I really don't. I mean, it's easy when you turn the ball over 3 times in your own end zone, or it's easy when you turn the ball over 3 times in your own territory. I mean, that definitely makes it easy. But still, how did we lose to these jokers?
So Jalen Milroe having a tough 2 weeks, turnovers,
safeties,
interceptions, again, stupid mistakes happening on both ends for this game, Alabama and Tennessee. So both teams are trying to prove themselves going into this game, saying, hey, we belong here. We belong at the top of the SEC. And not only that, we belong at the top of the college football playoff rankings when they come out soon. The ESPN FPI has Alabama at 54% and the spread having Bama at -2.5. Mason, you are first to pick.
No. I really don't know, man. Of course, everything in me wants to lean Bama, but then everything in me also wants to lean Tennessee, because you've got Alabama, who's been a little bit fraudulent since the Georgia game. I truly believe that either Georgia is that bad or Alabama just got lucky with all the turnovers, because they played, that was their best game of the year by far. They struggled against USF, and the score definitely does not reflect that, as they scored like 3 touchdowns in the last 3 minutes of the game. Wisconsin, Tyler Van Dyke went out on the first drive, and then they come out, and I think that they were just ready for us. I think that was a statement win that Kalen DeBoer had to get, and he got it, and then he comes out the next week and loses to Vanderbilt, and he almost loses to South Carolina, who didn't even score a touchdown against Ole Miss. So if that tells you anything, it kind of seems like Ole Miss's defense is better than Alabama's, which is not something I was expecting this year. Yeah. Because yes, did they lose to Kentucky, but their defense kind of held them in there. So, but then you have Tennessee, who they have the struggle loss to Arkansas, and then they have the struggle win against Florida. Now, both of these teams know that they're not going to underestimate each other. Alabama's not going to underestimate the offensive firepower that Nico has. But Tennessee's not going to underestimate the defense, because the defense has shown a little bit. They're not great. They're really not. This is a weak point for Alabama. But they're good enough to make some plays and win some games. So I don't think that either one of them is going to underestimate anything. And honestly, I kind of think that South Carolina last week for Bama and Florida last week for Tennessee may have been a little bit of a trap game, because they know that they're going to have to come in here and play a perfect game. With the game being in Neyland Stadium, that is going to be tough for Alabama. However, their offense plays pretty well. But Tennessee's defense, man, they've proven me. So give me Tennessee, bro. I'm not confident in it at all, but I think with the way that their defense has played this year and kept them in games, if Nico can find a way to get over the hump and make smart plays, Tennessee is going to win this game. I like Tennessee by a field goal. This is not a close game. I think this is a punch-for-punch game. Give me Tennessee by a field goal.
Yeah, this one's tough. This was number 2 in our choices for game of the week.
Yep. Because this is always a classic game, or at least it has been the past couple of years.
Yeah. Tennessee versus Alabama or Tennessee versus Georgia. It's always a good game. So coming into this game, some things I took out of the past couple weeks was Tennessee struggles when a very athletic quarterback is playing. Lagway played very well against Tennessee. Lagway, he's not there yet. Right. He's young, he's new, he's learning. And the Florida offense is just not typically good. And then Arkansas with Taylor Green, he was lighting up the Tennessee defense.
And then even when he went out at the end, the other quarterback, who was also extremely mobile, he went down in the field on them too.
And the thing about it is, Jalen Milroe is better than all three of them.
Yep.
And he has a young man named Ryan Williams.
I think Kirby called Jalen Milroe an extremely good running back with an arm.
Yeah. That's pretty accurate. Yeah. I remember hearing something, too, where Jalen Milroe doesn't typically throw in the middle of the field. He typically goes on the outsides, which is very interesting to me. How does that always win? It's crazy. But that's besides the point.
Because you have the speed of Ryan Williams, that's why.
Now, with Alabama, I'm going to take away from the South Carolina game. When there's a good defensive front, Jalen Milroe struggles. That offensive line struggles. Offense can't produce. The run game's not there. It's a dogfight at that point, and they're just fighting for field goals and just getting first downs, which was very interesting to me, especially going into a Tennessee game where they have a potential, not even potential, most likely a first-round pick in Pierce, who is absolutely incredible and really is what sealed the game who helped seal the game against Florida.
Right.
He stepped up when he needed to step up the most. He was quiet most of the game. When it really mattered, he stepped up. Can he make Jalen Milroe make mistakes like he has the past couple of weeks? I think he can, but I think when it comes down to a war of attrition, I think Alabama has more under their belt than Tennessee does. I think I think if Alabama loses this, DeBoer is going to be looked at a little differently.
I said at the beginning of the season, we were going over the preseason, ideas. I said Kalen DeBoer's on the hot seat at Alabama already.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is because this is Alabama.
They're judging the way he's dressed.
Yeah.
I mean, like
this. Yeah, Kalen DeBoer is already on the hot seat. At losing to Vanderbilt, that definitely put him on the hot seat.
Yeah.
Because this is Alabama. Now I don't know really. Realistically, I don't know any coach out there right now that would leave their program to come to Alabama that's better coached than him. He's got a great coaching record overall. Took Washington to the national championship last year. He's not a bad coach.
Oh. He's a different coach.
But that was a game losing to Vanderbilt. That was not good. Not good for him. That was not in his favor to lose to Vanderbilt.
He's a different coach from Nick Saban, which I think is what immediately put him in the hot seat. Yes. He's more offensive minded. Meanwhile, Nick Saban has always been a defensive minded coach, and offense comes second. And granted, that towards the end of Nick Saban's career is when offense started taking that forefront, but the defense was still there. The trend, though, right now is Alabama is losing their defense. Their defensive players are getting frustrated with some, play calls and stuff like that, as we saw at the end of the Vanderbilt game.
Yep.
But again, I have to pick Bama here. It's a tough pick. This week is probably going to be just like this past weekend where I have two games where I'm the only one picking a team, and it's going to be a close game and not in my favor.
I said, this is going to be a blow-for-blow game.
Yeah. This
is important for Josh Heupel because he's already got one loss. This is important for Kalen DeBoer because he's already got one loss. Mm-hmm. Tennessee needs this win to prove who they are, as a team, that they can make a playoff game, that they can beat Alabama consistently. I mean, and Josh Heupel, he knows how to beat Alabama. He's already done it once. Mm-hmm. 2022, he did it.
Yeah.
He had a high-powered, experienced quarterback, but he
did
it
this year. So
we'll see We'll see. But we know that Josh Heupel can do it. Mm-hmm. But can Kalen DeBoer come into the SEC, and can he win this big-time matchup against Tennessee at Neyland Stadium?
Yeah.
Because this is going to be really, so far out of the season, this is going to be Kalen DeBoer's biggest road game so far. He's never been to Neyland Stadium.
No.
He hasn't been anywhere else. He had his biggest game of the year against Georgia at home. That was really fortunate. Now he's got to go to Neyland.
I think if Alabama wins this game, though, they have two of the most impressive wins in the season in college football. So
I don't know, with the way Georgia's been playing.
With the way Georgia's been playing is questionable. But arguably, they have the two most impressive wins of college football if they come out with a win in this game. Which is weird because they will have the two most impressive wins, but the most
impressive loss of the century.
Worst loss
Sorry,
in Alabama history.
Yeah.
Like it. what other head coach can do that other than Kalen DeBoer?
I mean, Nick Saban lost to UL Monroe, but dang it, dude, this is Vanderbilt.
Yeah, like Vanderbilt. They never beat Alabama.
They haven't beat Alabama. They hadn't beat Alabama since 1984, and they'd never beat a top 5 team. Ever.
They were like 0-63
against top 5 teams. Yep.
Now they're 1-63.
So this one will definitely be an interesting game.
Yeah.
And we're definitely excited to see who wins it.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, we're going to move on to our final game, which is not as exciting, but it is a top 25 matchup. Basically, it's just a dogfight to see who can stay in the top 25. Number 24, Michigan versus number 22, Illinois. Not much to say here. Obviously, actually, what's really funny is that Illinois actually has the better record than Michigan. If you would have told me that at the beginning of the season, I sure wouldn't have believed you. Not because of Michigan. I didn't think Michigan was going to be that good, but because I didn't think Illinois was going to be that good, to be honest. But this is a tough Illinois team. As we said earlier, only loss is to Nebraska. Michigan coming off a really tough loss 2 weeks ago to Washington on the road in the national championship rematch, and also a loss to obviously the number 1 ranked Texas Longhorns. Now Michigan coming off the bye week, Illinois coming off a extremely close win against Purdue, 59-49 in overtime. Got the 2-point conversion to win. I don't know, man. This one's gonna be tough to pick because you have some really tough defenses here and some offenses that can definitely get it going when they need to. I think Michigan kind of keeps leaning on this 2-quarterback system with Davis Warren. I don't think they need to do that. I think they need to go to Orji and stay strictly at Orji. That's what I've been saying the entire season with Michigan. The ESPN FPI has Michigan favored to win 60%, and the spread is Michigan by 3. So both of them, kind of in agreement. I think this one's definitely going to be a close game. You have to pick first. Who you got?
You even just said they've been using this 2-quarterback system, but the last game I watched with them, they had a 3rd quarterback out there.
Yep. 3
and he did better than the other 2.
Yeah.
So it's really just what is going on Michigan's offense.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Illinois actually had an impressive offense against Purdue because they hung in and they ended up winning the game. The defense, I don't know what happened. I didn't choose to watch the game because, but it really comes down to both teams have really good defenses, but you know what? One team has shown me that they have an offense now.
Yep.
And that's Illinois. Michigan, they are the bigger name between the two. I'll give them that. But it's at Illinois. And that's all I need, really. You have gone between 3 quarterbacks, and not one has necessarily looked better than the other until you put in the 3rd string. Mm-hmm. It's tough. It's tough to pick Michigan. I got to choose Illinois.
Yeah, man, you make a really good point. Before I get into my pick, Isaac, he is picking Michigan. He's going to take the Wolverines in this one on the road at Illinois. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's in favor for Illinois. Like you said, it's at Illinois. Mm-hmm. Michigan's got to go on the road again. So they just were in Washington playing the Huskies. Come home, get the bye week, get a little bit of rest. Now they got to go right back out on the road to Illinois. I think that's the biggest thing in Michigan's favor right now is that they're coming off the bye week. In the first couple weeks I talked about, I have to pick the team that I trust, mm-hmm. right? And I think I said that about Georgia when it was Alabama. I didn't trust Georgia to beat Alabama, mm-hmm. and I was right. I don't trust Michigan to come out right now and win against Illinois, so I'm with you. I'm going with the Fighting Illini, mm-hmm. all right? I think that, they got that tough win against Nebraska, and honestly, Nebraska might be better than Michigan. They really might be. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out, but Michigan is not that good of a team this year. They kind of remind me almost, don't you guys get mad when I say this, but they almost remind me of the 2019 LSU crew. Come off a big win in the national championship, and then immediately fall off. And don't get me wrong, it was the 2020 season where everybody played everybody in the SEC, and that was a tough season for everybody in that conference except for Alabama. But still, yeah, I think I got the Fighting Illini. Michigan, they're just not as good as they've been. That's pretty much the bottom line, and I don't trust them. So yeah. I've been picking, a lot of hope. I don't necessarily trust Georgia to beat Texas, but they're my boys, and I hope they can do it. So that one was based on a little bit of hope. But this one definitely is based on I don't trust Michigan right now. So give me Illinois. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is our show. So awesome to be back together. We will be back to the internet next week, but it's been super nice. You get this little bit of throwback episode, kind of like reminds me of the early seasons, man.
Yeah, it's weird and less awkward.
Yeah, definitely.
That's for sure.
And Joey obviously is going to school right now in Western North Carolina, so we've seen the destruction. And guys, it's not over. Like, this is going to be years long of a rebuild. There's parts of I-40 going into Tennessee that literally slipped into the river, and it's not even going to be open until September of 2025 was the last update. So just continue praying for the families and the victims of Hurricanes Helene in Western North Carolina and Milton in Florida. There is going to be some major recovery efforts still taking place, relief efforts still taking place, and just because national media is not covering doesn't mean it's not over. So, yeah, please continue to keep them in their prayers.
And always remember,
no matter what team you pull for, if you're on God's side, you're always on the winning team. Just know that there's a Father in heaven who loved you, who created you, who is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, and that he loves you. He still loves you. No matter what you've done, he loves you. Romans 5:8 tells us that while we were still sinners, while we were still the enemies of God, he sent his only son to die for us. And that would be Jesus Christ, the Son of God, who got on the cross, was nailed to the cross, and bled and died for your sins, and raised again on the third day, forever defeating death and sin. If you don't believe that, we believe that you need to. That's a big thing here that we believe at TBD CFB, and we want you to know that. So if you ever have any questions, you can always hit us up on our Instagram DMs, our TikTok DMs, or just leave a comment on this YouTube video. We're praying for you, and we'd love to talk to you. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Later.